Let's go back a little bit and talk about students. You said, you know, you think there's great potential, and as a teacher you don't always have the chance to tap in, because you've got to be sure that they've got at least the baseline information. So talk more about this generation of students, if you would. What are you seeing, and what gives you hope? What gives you concerns? What are they saying?
Let's see. Let's talk about concerns first, because I like to end on the positive when it comes to kids.
Well done.
I have concerns, and I think the broader population of adults do as well, that students are not always given the opportunity to advocate for themselves. They are not patient. They expect short information in short, vibrant pictures, I suppose. Like I think of the media that I use video from thehistory.com, for example, and they're in 2 to 5 minute segments, and it's about perfect, which is okay, because it does help to create a balance, right? And it's very efficient in terms of these kids learning. You know, if you show much longer, they
well,
they
and it's typical
out.
of us as adults too. I'm just going to.
No, it's
I'm going to have their back on that one, because we're no different as adults.
You know what's interesting is, just as a side note, we have 46-minute periods, I think, and I always, about 20 minutes in, give my kids just a break, just to get up and move. And I've got a little basketball hoop in my room, and the kids, you know, I mean, just because I too, I'm like, after 20 minutes, you kind of go,
I need to get up and move.
Oh, I need to move. So I always give them that, and I think that's worked very, very well. But so the digital age concerns me a bit. I have concerns, as many people do, with messages that kids are getting, young women are getting, but even boys, you know, the boys that are getting messages about how they respond to women. I mean, this is a bigger issue, confusing. You know. And so there are those issues.
Well, talk, if you don't mind my interrupting a little bit here, because I know you've mentioned this as well. Talk about that. Talk about some of the gender concerns that you have. And I would just agree. I would just support that. I agree. I think there's some real serious issues going on with young women, real dissonance. And I think there's also some really serious issues, and they're somewhat related. In fact, I'll just start this out by saying, you were reflecting before we started taping on young women, and what you were saying was exactly what I'm hearing from some young men, that young women often have this, it's bravado, I think, in a sense, and it's, as women, we're glad to see that strength, and yet it's coming off as almost competitive, or almost pushing boundaries in ways that maybe aren't productive for them, or even their relationships with boys. And I'm so hesitant. You can tell I'm hesitating to say that, because it's so tricky.
It's very tricky, and it's very covert. I mean, I think even as women who are pretty conscious of it, we don't even necessarily see it. I think that young women have the message that if they are overtly sexual, that's a freedom. That
sex is power.
That sex is power, but that as being female, you're not ashamed of your body, so you're going to put it out there. That's the way to do it.
Okay, and what's wrong with doing it that way?
Because it focuses on clearly the wrong thing, but it changes the scope of how we look at sexuality. It takes the focus away from young women becoming strong, bright, participatory members of society with who they are, as opposed to what they have. And how many girls, how many times we hear this, how many girls are a size 2? Kim Kardashian, on People magazine, look at her bikini body. I mean, that's what these kids are seeing. This is on Huffington Post or on CNN.com sometimes, you know.
It's not just on People magazine is what you're saying. It's pervading.
It's more. I mean, in fairness, it's more.
But it is part of the culture.
But it's part of the culture, and we see that for young women as being strength, because they're not ashamed of their bodies. Okay, well, that's, I don't feel like it's a piece of it.
So what is, where's the, I mean, this is what we're struggling with, right? Because you go, well, maybe that's fine, and yet, what isn't fine? What's that piece of it that's not so good? I mean, what are the repercussions? I'll just say that research shows that sexual abuse is actually going up rather than down. Now, this seems insane to me, given, you know.
What limits people more? Something that you can't change. So if I am expected to be a size 2 woman, but I am a size 12.
Which is the average.
Which is the average. It's a hard thing to change. Or if you are size 2, but you have bigger hips, which is not as acceptable as being a straight line at this point. You can't change your bone structure. You know, if you are, there are things you can change about it, but think about plastic surgery and women who are just, and again, with due respect to people who make that choice, they absolutely have the right to make that choice, but what I struggle with is when it's an expectation.
Right.
And so it's oppressive to me that you put out there for women this
what
standard.
does it oppress? What does it oppress? Oppressive is an important word for women. I would also say for men, but we're talking about women today, and I'd love to talk with all kinds of people about boys because I'm equally as concerned with boys. But today we're talking about girls, and it's you have 2 daughters. I have a daughter, so this is relevant to us as well. But what is oppression? What is oppressive about that? What is being oppressed? Do you follow me?
Yeah, I do. I think it's plain and simply because that is where the focus is. I mean,
so is it oppressing brains?
It is. It's oppressing, and it's oppressing potential.
Potential. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, you can still look at a powerful woman like Hillary Clinton, and she is continually assessed because of whatever size she is, what she's wearing, and if she makes strong statements, she is heavily criticized, called names, and so we think, and I think women have made a lot of strides. For sure, but we still have that out there, and so when you focus so much on sexuality, it's limiting.
So do you think that the focus, in the 60s sexuality, it was about everyone, free love, free, loving bodies, but it's somehow been sort of, there's something been corrupted through it, and by corruption I mean warped in a way.
Exactly,
am I getting, and without trying to be a prudish, which I'm not, but what's that about? Do you have any sense?
I don't know. I do think it's without, and I don't want to be a conspiracy theorist, but I absolutely believe that it is about keeping women in a certain position and not allowing for them to be in leadership roles. And to say not allowed, that's a little dramatic, but definitely making it more difficult. I mean, women still make, I think it's 80 cents to $1 that a man makes. So we believe that those strides have been made, but they haven't necessarily been made.
I want to address that, and we're going to have a good, productive debate, which I know that you and I can wonderfully have, because I'm going to challenge us as women on that one. But first, before I get to that, and I do want to get to that, but before I get to that, what is the impact on girls that you see in your high school?
I think the impact on girls is everything from limiting themselves, because the belief is that it's so much about outward appearance. I think that it is
hiding their intelligence.
Yes, perhaps hiding their intelligence.
Depression.
And there are certainly young women who don't do that. I'm not talking about.
So there's your progress. You're saying there is good progress.
Oh, yes. Absolutely. I'm not talking in absolutes. I just, it's that percentage of girls that struggle that I worry about. Eating disorders, which is not a new issue. The idea that if you're going to literally make yourself sick and you're willing to potentially threaten your life to meet these standards. I mean, that's just so twisted. It's so twisted. And girls don't choose that for themselves. Those are the messages that are given. I think it places women in a position that they can't get out of, and then I think they move on to that. Okay, so here's my example. Here's my example. Okay?
Go for it.
We're going to go with Miley on this one. Okay.
We're going to go with Miley.
We're going to go with Miley because Miley has been ostracized. This is how I look at it. So Miley dresses in this very provocative outfit,
right?
Making very sexual gestures. Robin Thicke is in this funky looking suit, but he is fully clothed. They do this twerking thing. Okay,
so he's also expressing a sexual.
He is,
right?
Well, yeah, but he doesn't have to be naked to do it on stage, right? And so this controversy happens, and who was ostracized for that?
Right. It wasn't
Robin Thicke
for being. Okay.
I'm
totally with you. I totally agree with you. So, moving forward, how do we, as women, you talk about potentials, and I hear you, and I'm not going to at all argue your points. What I want to look at is how do we push and continue to express those rights that have already been earned. So what we know is that it is okay now for girls to play sports. It is okay for girls now to be intelligent, and you're seeing evidence of that,
Absolutely.
of them allowing themselves to be intelligent.
And I want to be very clear about that. That is so out there.
How do we promote more of that? Because I'm not sure that we're going to get around the Miley Cyrus or the Kim Kardashian effect. I don't think we have yet. I believe culture drives culture. So yes, ads and marketing and money and so forth do, and yet so do people. So if women are able to sort of block that out and continue to push and not be not allow themselves to be oppressed, and it does take more work, I think, and we can complain about that, and yet complaining isn't getting us anywhere, in my view.
And philosophizing is not getting.
Right.
Yeah.
So what do you think of that? I mean, how can we?
I
think of Lean In, Sheryl Sandberg.
Yep.
Really like her stuff, and I didn't at first. I thought, oh boy, here we go again.
Yep.
It's going to be another sort of, tap on the head, girls,
Yep.
yeah, rah, 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 or bad guys, or whatever it is.
Yep.
Me personally, not interested. She's not saying bad guys. She's not tapping. She's not saying rah, rah. She's saying lean in. One simple thing she advocates for is if you see a young girl or a little girl who is bossy, let her be bossy. Say that she's a CEO. I have one of my colleagues has a daughter that was strong-willed, not so much strong-willed, but just a clear leader. And of course, that's a harder child sometimes to parent. And I used to say, she's a leader. Can we do that more? And are we doing that enough?
I think we're seeing even some cultural shifts a little bit in terms of body image. I think there's a little bit out there. There's a whole lot of fighting back. There's an industry out there that makes billions of dollars on women's bodies and how to change them. And you see them regularly if you watch commercials anymore, which most people don't because of DVRs. But so that's definitely out there. I think it's about personal relationships. I think it's about moms who are able to go to that place. I think it's about women who are able to tell that story. That was one thing that happened in my classroom this year is I felt like we were able to talk about that a little bit.
So not just moms either. I mean, as a mom, but also as a woman teacher.
Yes.
And I wrote an essay recently about, I go to my YMCA and I was an athlete, so Title IX meant something. I didn't know anything about Title IX until well after I was playing sports. But what seems remarkable to me is that all of us women were needing Title IX, and it was an education initiative. It wasn't a sports initiative. But as our culture goes, the sports became sort of but I don't see women out there playing with the girls, and therefore I don't see girls out there playing. I do see men out there playing. So, and I think what you're saying is in real life, as a teacher or as a mom or as a neighborhood, is that what you're saying?
Yeah. I think there's women thrive best when we are good to other women. Margaret Mead said there's a special place in hell for women who are horrible to women. I'm completely paraphrasing, but it works.
It's a good point.
It's a good point. It works the opposite as well, and it's powerful. And it can't just be moms. It's got to be teachers. It's got to be faith communities. It has to be tapped into that how you are is absolutely fine. The other piece of it, though, and you mentioned it, is the boys, because we can't say bad boys, bad boys. Boys are as manipulated into the expectations that they have as young women.
Absolutely. And I'm really glad you said that. That's really important.
Yeah.